All right, hello everybody, and welcome again to Batting 1,000, where we interview the heavy hitters in the mortgage and the real estate and financial industry. And today is no exception. I am so excited about today's conversation and interview with a guest that I'm not only honored to welcome as a partner. We have been through Mortgage Champions, a select consulting partner with ICE Mortgage Technology for a couple of years now, but I am just really honored because Tim Bowler, who's the president of ICE Mortgage Technology, who probably needs no introduction of any kind, as you may know, if you've paid attention to the mortgage industry, he has really got a heart for not just Americans and home ownership, but also for the mortgage professionals who serve homeowners. And that's what I think makes him such a special executive in this industry of a major tech server, a great partner and friend of ours in ICE Mortgage Technology. Prior to ICE Mortgage Technology, Tim spent some time at Goldman Sachs during the 2008 meltdown. I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit more about that. He has an incredible resume. He's a 2023 Vanguard. We share that together, HousingWire Vanguard. And his vision has really shaped the way that ICE has been able to just impact our industry in such a powerful and positive way. Tim, so honored to have you. Thanks for being with me today.
Dale, I really appreciate you having me on the podcast. Look forward to chatting with you, and then obviously engaging with all your listeners as I meet with them over time.
Awesome. Well, appreciate that. Well, let's start here. You and I talked a little bit backstage, and I want to talk about kind of what you see the vision to be of technology in the industry down the road. But let's start with a phrase that you and I both believe in and love and talk about all the time. From the stage during the Experience Conference each year, and that's having a high-tech, high-touch approach to the marketplace. I would just love for you to share some of the conversation we started to have about where you see technology and the importance of human connection, how those two things work together going forward in this world where AI is coming in and people are kind of concerned about where's this going to go and what's this going to mean to the human side. Could you share some of your thoughts on that we talked a little bit about earlier?
Yeah, of course, and this is a subject matter I'm passionate about. So when you take a big step back, when somebody buys a house or refinances a house or takes out a home equity loan, those are some of the most major financial decisions that any individual or any family makes, and they're going to want to engage with professionals that can give them the best possible advice as they're going through those processes that have 6, 7, 8 digits associated with them. So I am just relentless in engaging with my team and my colleagues here at Intercontinental Exchange or ICE and ICE Mortgage Technology about how do we deliver technology solutions that can help that professional, that can help that lending officer, that can help that counselor, that can help that representative in a call center have a better, deliver a better experience and a better outcome to that household, to that family that's going through their home ownership journey. So for us, it's all about how do we leverage the existing tools that exist? How do we leverage the existing solutions? How do we enhance them and integrate them in such a way that those professionals, those mortgage finance professionals, can really deliver for the American people?
So let's talk about that for a minute. Let's start with the ICE mobile apps and what you guys are doing from a mobile standpoint to make things easier and more efficient for consumers as well as for lenders, and how you see that technology growing and evolving and changing over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. So I'll break that down into a couple pieces. So first and foremost, mobile is front and center for our strategy.
Yep.
Like whether you're the lending officer or you're the household, you're going to want a good in-hand digital interface to be able to source information quickly and to be able to deliver information either to your lending officer or to whoever's helping you out with your application, and or if you're a lending officer to that household that's looking to buy a house or refinance a house or take out a home equity loan. So everything that we're doing for the clients that we work with, the lenders, the servicers that we work with, is basically being able to create a digital mobile experience for them that they could brand, that they could for themselves, that they can make certain that appropriately customized to meet their needs for the households that they serve. So it is as I said earlier, front and center for us. And I've seen some real advancements around what we can deliver through through our Encompass Consumer Connect, through the work that we're doing for lending officers to be able to have a better mobile experience, through some of the work that we're doing now to try to enhance the mobile experience through our product and pricing engine, our ICE product and pricing engine, to really have a seamless environment that can meet homeowners and mortgage professionals where they are, regardless if they're in the office or out the road or just at home at night wanting to go to work on a particular subject matter associated with their housing finance journey.
Okay. Now, of course, since you guys have had the partnership with Black Knight and now have all of these different technologies, how do you see those kind of merging together in the future world of what tech looks like for originators? And what do you see the originator's role being in maximizing the technologies that you guys offer and provide in today's market?
Okay, but I think it's everything. So, as an organization, we're really blessed from the standpoint that our technology and solution suite is really life of loan. So by bringing together the legacy LMA franchises, the legacy Black Knight franchise, which the LE franchise very much had origination focus. The Black Knight franchise through MSB had a deep technology focus on servicing. But by bringing those two things together, and the ancillary solutions and technology offerings that we have, we can truly deliver that life of loan experience. And the way I best highlight this is I just think about helping that first-time home buyer.
Yep.
So you have that first-time home buyer. You're going to want to engage with them in both a digital manner and also in an in-person manner. This is one of the most complex transactions that household or that individual or that family is going to undertake. So that lending officer that's out there working with that first-time household, they're going to want to have a solution set that allows that household to be able to provide information back efficiently in an easy-to-use manner to the lender to basically complete that application, to be able to get that pre-qual letter. So when they're out there shopping, that they can hand that pre-qual letter to whoever the buyer is and say, I have financing guaranteed. You don't need to worry about me. And have that in such a way that it doesn't in any way, shape, or form create undue anxiety for that household. But we do that through our Encompass Consumer Connect and and the advancements that we're making in that product. Then once that household's found the house that they want to buy, the key there is getting ready to close on that timeline. So it's making it efficient to manufacture that underlying file in a way in partnership with that household as efficiently as possible, such that when the time is right to close on that purchase, everything is done and there's no surprises in the last minute. So that's where docking in our consumer interface with the Encompass Consumer Connect into our Encompass manufacturing process to make that as easy as possible. Reduces the burden on the lender, reduces the burden on the household when you're getting the file manufactured to get ready for closing.
Okay.
And then once that's, sorry, Gail.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, and then once that loan is made, we've invested in the technology to make the process of boarding that loan on this servicing as seamless as possible. And why that's important for the entire ecosystem is, we have the capacity now to straight through board a loan from Encompass, our loan origination system, onto MSP in a fully digitized manner. And that's, if you're retaining servicing, that's exceptionally important because it reduces the chance that errors get made between when the data sets in the loan origination and what goes into the servicing system of record. If there's less errors there, it means that seller servicer is going to be able to engage with that household in a much better and more accurate and less compliance risky manner over time. Yep. Or if that servicing is going to be sold, which in many instances servicing does get sold over time,
yep,
then whoever's buying the servicing knows that household as best they possibly can be because they have the best straight through process to those origination data sets. And then finally, and this is what I'm really excited about, is through the ability to combine Encompass and MSP together, you can dynamically engage with that household over their life of loan experience. So when the time is right to refinance, you can make it as easy as possible. When the time is right for that household to take a home equity loan that we can support through Encompass, you can do that efficiently because the data sets that you need are already there in MSP, our servicing system of record. And finally, in the best day in any homeowner's journey, when they pay off that, when they make that final payment, own the
Yeah.
home free and clear, we can get that lien released automatically and in straightforward process as possible, and just make it easier on the homeowner. And then, when they come back to buy that second home, they'll think of the lender that they worked with. They'll think of the servicer that they worked with that made it easy for them. So
Got it.
it's bringing that technology set together from the point of origination through servicing and delivering across that ecosystem is really, really important to us, Dale.
Great. Now, having trained, gosh, 1.5 million loan officers in the 30 years that I've done this, and
Yeah.
like 800 lenders, what I'm seeing more and more and more in the 2023, 2024, and now 2025 markets, because we've come out of the 2020, 21
Mm-hmm.
market where rates were completely low, record low rates of all time. We saw very much a volume transactional type market that you could get away with and succeed. And we've shifted into more of a conversion market now where you've got to be very relational in the approach to your customers. What I'm seeing with the lenders who are absolutely killing it today is that they're able to combine the importance of the human element of relationship and conversation and building trust and loyalty with their borrowers and their realtors, along with utilizing the technology so that they get the efficiencies and the accuracy and the uniformity and all the things that matter. I'd love to hear your
and
thoughts
the, and the
on
speed and speed.
and the speed, which
As you know,
critical,
it's
critical.
in the housing environment, particularly for the first time home buyer, where a
Yep.
lot of, there's limited stock. You've got to be able to execute so fast,
Yeah.
to get that pre-qual letter in the hands of the seller's agent to deliver with confidence and on behalf of that buyer. So speed, I can't emphasize enough the speed to turn things around is so
Yep.
critical now.
Yeah, well, especially when you're pulling a credit report and you got 230 lenders that are contacting the borrower within
Wow.
minutes. The competition is brutal out there today. So,
Oh, I know.
share your thoughts on where you see the future going in the way that we're going to continue to be able to merge the use of the human element of relationship with the technologies that you are creating. What does that look like from your perspective?
Yeah. So I'd say three things. First and foremost, it is meeting the home buyer or the borrower where they want to be met,
Yep.
and we all need to be humble enough to know that individuals and households want to engage in the home finance process differently.
Yep.
Some want to be some want to be chat dominant. Some want to be in person contact. Some want
Yep.
to just do this all over the phone, and some just want to do it through a digital interface where they just do it. I'm going to do it myself, and so you have to arm the lender and the LO, because the LO is going to be there, with the right set of tools so they can meet their client base where they're at. Second, it is speed. We just spent some time talking about it. It's
Yep.
how do you work with that household to get the information that you need to be able to turn around that pre-qual letter as fast as possible. So that is, from our perspective, how we're helping with that is bringing in some of our analyzer tools, our underwriting assist tools, really earlier into the process so the LO can have access to that, so they can work with their lender, they can work with their shop to be able to get that pre-qual letter turned around as fast as possible.
Yep.
And then third, it's having that digital interface and that loan origination system that can essentially turn that close around, as efficiently as possible. You brought up the question on, once credit is pulled, that borrower is going to get inundated. The
Yep.
best way to put your client's mind at ease in that regard is schedule. Once that lender says I'm ready to go, once they've locked the loan, set the closing date for the loan. And set that
Yep.
closing date with confidence. And that's particularly true, obviously, with the refinancing opportunities. So making certain that you have that digital interface that can essentially work with that household throughout that process once they've locked the loan to be able to get to that closing table as quickly as possible or as appropriately as possible is
Yep.
really, really important, Dale.
So let's talk for a minute about the real estate agent, because one of the big breakdowns that I see all the time training companies and lenders and loan officers across the country is that they do a good job with the consumer.
Mhm.
They don't do a very good job with the connection and communication with the realtor. What are you guys doing from a technology standpoint to help augment that so they don't get unhooked from the realtor, because the realtor's like, well, you know what? I got my lender. I've never heard of this lender that you're bringing to me. We're going
Yeah.
to use my guy. How do you build that out in a tech format to make a difference?
Well, I'll circle back to a point I mentioned earlier. We're making big investments to basically put the underwriting analyzer. So basically, the
Yep.
capacity to really work with that household on the front end, putting that in the hands of the lending officer. So right when they're working with that household that's working with a real estate agent, that you
Yep.
can get that pre-qual letter done as soon as possible, because that what that real estate agent's going to want to see
Yeah.
is they're going to want to see that home buyer with that pre-qual letter in their hand, and they're when they go out to shop, such that when they find in a competitive market, when they find the right home, they can make a competitive offer that day. And what unlocks that is that pre-qual letter. What
Yep.
unlocks the speed of the pre-qual letter is not having to wait for that full underwriting process to come back. It's arming the LO. It's arming the admin with those underwriting tools to get that pre-qual letter in place and to get that done in confidence. Obviously,
Yeah.
you're going to have to you're going to have to go through a full underwrite within the context of any mortgage, but we can deliver a lot greater certainty to lenders and that home buyer by having a lot of those analytical tools, those analyzer tools on the front end. So once that borrower is providing a couple core pieces of data, whether digitally through bank access or through the more traditional paper route, you can get that pre-qual letter done as fast as possible.
That's awesome. Yeah, because if the realtor gets that pre-underwritten deal, they're going to feel as though they're 90% of the way there. All they really need is an appraisal at that point. It really wouldn't make much sense to unhook the lender at that point. So
That's exactly
that's
right,
critical. Yeah,
and
that's critical.
that's where you're building those. It's in your clients know this. Um, there's the virtuous cycle in our market. You're able
Yep.
to execute for a number of folks. They tell their friends, they tell their family, they tell like I worked with this great lender. I worked with this great independent mortgage bank. Oh, I worked with this great credit union, and they delivered for me exactly what I needed. Right on the front end with a pre-qual letter. It just makes it so much easier to hand off in that warm introduction, which is
Yep.
built on itself for the industry.
Okay. Well, let's talk for a few minutes about what, probably is the number one concern of lenders today in the marketplace in order to survive the markets that we've been in and succeed and thrive, and that is customer acquisition and customer retention. You and I both believe in a customer for life mindset. We both believe in the importance of ongoing communication once that initial application is in place and you've funded that loan. Talk to us a little bit about why that's important and what you're seeing from a tech standpoint that's going to support the process of not only acquiring customers, but then retaining those customers long term.
Yeah, that's marrying data and technology better together. So through our ICE customer acquisition suite, we really brought together the three foundational aspects associated with engaging with households. First and foremost, your CRM.
Yep.
You need to have a best in class CRM to understand that household that's either a legacy client or a prospect, or somebody in between, where
Yep.
you're working with them already. And so having a best in class CRM that we do, it's just absolutely critical. And then you need to feed that best in class CRM with supplemental data and supplemental analytics to help you really understand when's the right time for me to engage, with that household, right?
Yep.
Because you don't want to be, using a very colloquial term, you don't want to be spamming that household all the time and eventually annoying them, and then they click the unsubscribe button,
Right.
or that or they immediately send you the voicemail every time. You want to make certain you're engaged in the right way. And I think having good CRM tools that can then leverage leverage market data, that can leverage public markets data, that can leverage data sets that you feed in are super important. And then secondly, it's the lead management process. It's understanding like what is the best way to engage with that borrower through dialing campaigns, through digital campaigns, whether that be mobile and or email. It's using good judgment at the LO level, and then obviously at a macro level, like how you structure those campaigns and execute upon those campaigns once the moment is right.
Yep.
And then third, it's when that household's going to engage with you, as we talked about earlier, giving them the right digital interface and the right human interface such
Yep.
that you can convert the way that that household wants to convert. I think we pull all that together at ICE through our ICE customer acquisition suite, which was really unifying a lot of unifying our CRM tools, our lead management tools, and our consumer engagement, digital consumer engagement tools all in one house.
Okay, great. Where do you see AI coming into play? I mean, this is the rave that everybody's talking about today. Every conference that I speak at, and I probably have done 20 keynotes already this year in conferences across the country, and every time the AI topic comes up, man, people flock to those sessions.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear your thoughts on where you guys are going with that and where you see the industry at large going and how AI is going to work into the benefit of both the lender and the originator.
yeah. It's two macro buckets there. The
Yep.
first macro bucket is like, how do you make the human capital, the great human capital we have in this industry, much more efficient? So it's
Yep.
leveraging the document and data automation. It's leveraging machine learning. It's leveraging the large language models to make that lending officer, to make that underwriter more efficient within the context of their job. They're critical that those households are going to rely on that lending officer. The actual lender itself needs that underwriter to do their job as efficiently and as appropriately as possible. So leveraging those underlying tools to make that human capital efficient is absolutely critical. And then once that loan is boarded to servicing, that household's going to have inquiries over time. Things are going to change. Escrow's
Right.
going to change. They're going to want assistance. Leveraging those tools to basically ensure that you can in advance predict when that household might have a question, so you can meet them where they're at digitally, such they don't need to take the time to call a call center, or if they are calling your call center and interacting with your professionals, arming that professional right away with what's the most likely question that this household's calling about, so they can be right on point in answering the household's questions. So it's really, whether it be origination or servicing, having the tools lever that human capital so they can deliver more efficiently for the buyer and or the homeowner. The second macro bucket is, and I'm exceptionally excited about this, is how do we use better predictive analytics? And like, what are the
Okay.
things that I'm really pushing my team at ICE to think about and experiment with? It's how do you leverage different data sets, whether it be public record data sets that might be sitting in your servicing system, data sets that might be sitting in your legacy origination system, market data sets, to just relentlessly test and evaluate what are the best predictive analytics for you as a lender and or a servicer to understand when's the time right to engage with that household. Because
Yep.
we all know this, like, how many times you get emails a million times a day, somebody trying to sell
Yeah.
you something, right?
Right. Right.
But like, if you can, if you can through predictive analytics have just a better sense as to when it's really right for that LO to call, because it might be time for that household to get a home equity loan because they've been in the house for 5 or 6 years. That the home was 20 to 30 years old when they bought it, so it might be time for an enhancement, or their note rate is 3 or 4%. They're probably going to stay in that house. It's how do it's using those predictive analytics where the house, the borrower, to engage with them on that home equity loan. Or I think about it in servicing. It's how do you amplify the recapture and get discussion when is the right time to go talk to that household about refinancing. And it's understanding, well, you know what, that household's probably not going to engage unless they see more than $500 a month savings, or that household's not going to engage unless they see more than 750 because they're an experienced borrower. We can deliver that predictive analytics better to help make that engagement with the household more productive. And then also on the servicing side, it's how do you leverage those predictive analytics when a household might face a hardship in the near future, such that you can get your best human capital, your best talent to engage with that household, even though they might still be current or might have only gone a few days delinquent. They're in front of them because they might need help soon. And the earlier you engage when a household faces a hardship, the more likely you are going to keep that borrower current or in a payment plan, which will help them over the long haul retain and keep that house. So that's
Yep.
very, very excited about the power of combining diverse data sets to be able to deliver better predictive analytics to our industry.
Awesome. So looking down the road, you've got a great bird's eye view of what's happening in the industry, and I know you guys spend a lot of time talking about what the future is going to hold. I'd love to hear your perspective on two things. Next 5 to 10 to 15 years, where do you see technology going, and where do you see the industry going? From the vantage point of how the mortgage industry is going to shape home ownership and the American dream and all the things that we've committed our careers and our lives to.
Well, so I'll go in reverse order if that's okay, Dale. Because
That's
I
fine.
want to talk about the industry first, because you have to have a good sense of where the industry is going, and then
Yep.
on the back of that build your technology plan. So I see the industry, whether it be real estate agents, whether it be the diverse ecosystem we have today of lenders, from small independent mortgage bankers, credit unions, regional banks, large banks,
Yep.
to very large IMBs. I
Yep.
see that existing in place for the foreseeable future. It's one of the
Me
great
too.
foundational things about the U.S. housing system, that there are so many different outlets to obtain mortgage finance in this country that
Yep.
any household can find the one that's right for them. And it's a real blessing, because I think about, I spent a number of years over in Europe. There might only be 4 or 5 lenders in various countries, and that really constricts mortgage credits.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in the U.S., you're blessed with this incredibly dynamic ecosystem with a multitude of different opportunities to obtain mortgage financing, and that's good for households. It's good for families, and I
Good.
just don't see that changing at all. And because of that, and that combined with the fact that, as we discussed earlier, this is the most important transaction for so many households. The need for talented human capital is not going to change. So you put
Agreed.
those two things together. I don't see I don't really see a fundamental shift in the next 10 years of the way we do business here, or the need for human capital in our industry. What I do see the shift is our industry getting a lot better at engaging with households through dynamic digital tools. And I
Yep.
do see a potential big shift over the course of the next 10 years and leveraging source data much more
Yep.
efficiently relative to we do today, to be able to migrate, or to be able to make those underwriting decisions more efficient. I keep, when I engage with the enterprises, when I engage with leaders at FHA or VA, or I engage with real thought leaders in the industry, I keep, asking them and iterating with them, like, how do we find ways to leverage source data, your banking data, if you will, better as part of that underwriting process, to be able to make those underwriting decisions faster and much more dynamically, relative to some of the processes that exist today that can just be very clunky and burdensome because they're still too paper reliant.
Yep.
And then how do we find ways to incorporate more residual income underwriting into our system, relative to the ratio based models that exist today. And that, in my mind, it's because the benefit is so great when you get to be able to leverage source data, the ability to decision that borrower faster is available once you're leveraging source data. That it's my sense that investors and or insurers down the road are going to make the necessary investments to be able to facilitate greater leveraging of that source data.
Yep.
And we'll find safer and more secure ways for the banking industry and households to feel comfortable providing that source data on a temporary basis to be able to do that underwriting. And that's going to require a lot of technology. That's going to continue to require, a strong and trusted relationship between that LO and the household in order to facilitate it.
Well, got to say that's some encouraging words. I love that. That's your outlook. You and I share the same outlook on where the market's going. You hear so much negativity in the market today, and I'm constantly reminding leaders and their employees, look, this marketplace is going to be strong for decades to come. Even just the population numbers. You look at Gen Y, Gen Z, 168 million individuals between those two generations, which is almost 50 million more than the two generations before. We've got real estate around for a long, long time,
Yep.
and homeownership is going to be the American dream for the rest of our lives. No question about that. So it's
We
really
Americans
exciting.
love buying homes
We
and owning
do. We
homes.
do. We do.
And we also love moving.
Yep.
We're a country. We move. We don't sit in the same place. So I remind my team that this market is up and to the right.
Yep.
And we have an interesting patch now because we've been hit by the double whammy of high rates and high home prices, but those things are self-correcting and they will correct.
Yep.
And I'm very optimistic about where policymakers right now are focusing on the supply question. I'm very optimistic that builders are getting so much more aggressive on building starter homes relative
Yep.
to where they've been over the last couple of years. That
Yep.
I really see the market combined with a little help from policymakers, getting back to a better place in the next few years.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. It's so interesting how many times when I'm speaking to lenders, I will remind their employees that the American dream is truly only the American dream. I've traveled all over the world. You go overseas anywhere, you don't have the dynamics you have here in America. You don't have the access to home ownership that you have here in America. It's a very unique ecosystem that we've created. There's no question about it.
Couldn't agree more, Dale.
Love that. So I want to talk about something a little bit more on a personal side, because I mentioned earlier at the beginning that you have a very big heart for home ownership.
Yeah.
I know around 2016, you were involved in some things that really helped build home ownership in the city of Detroit. Detroit had gone through some very difficult times. I would love for you to share that story so the audience can get a little better feel for your character and your heart for our industry, because I think it's a great story.
Yeah, I know this was it's one of the best jobs I ever had in my life. I was working at the United States Treasury from 2011 through the middle part of 2015, and I got to know Mayor Mike Duggan, who was the mayor of Detroit, reasonably well through some work around housing finance reform. And he brought it to my attention that it was nearly impossible to get a mortgage in the city of Detroit,
Yep.
Particularly around the time of the bankruptcy and coming out of the great financial crisis. And I was like, why? And he said, well, Tim, I can't get appraisals here in the city. Like there's no good comps anymore, and so we can't get appraisals, and it's blocking lending. And I need you to go to Fannie and Freddie and start getting them to make loans in the city of Detroit with LTVs above 100%. And I'm like, Mike, I got it. I'm not sure that's gonna work. I'm sorry, but I understand. I fully agree, but that's gonna work, though. So, but he's like, well, you got to do something. And so I ended up on getting to know his team over at the Detroit Land Bank really well, and come to learn that what they were trying to think through is how could they rehabilitate abandoned homes and abandoned properties in the city of Detroit to be able, make them turnkey for movers to come in. And it dawned on all of us that, if we could find a way to basically take some of these homes that the land bank owned through foreclosure process, tax-based foreclosure processes, get them rehabilitated, get them sold, we could start establishing, what good comps in the city for what a home that would be appropriate to own or occupy. And so we ended up partnering. So I ended up moving to the city of Detroit in the summer of 2015 to go work at the land bank after I left Treasury. And the land bank the Rock Foundation, Dan Gilbert's foundation,
Yep.
a Home Depot, and the city of Detroit partnered, and we formed something called the Rehabbed and Ready program, where we went out, identified properties that the land bank owned in neighborhoods that we really thought could be turnkey, rehabilitated the property, put a mortgage on it through through Rocket Mortgage and the Rock
Yep.
Foundation, sold the properties, as turnkeys. So they were already rehabilitated, so the household didn't need to go through the rehabilitation process, and established a comp. And then we did it again.
Yep.
We did it again, and we did it again. Then I left, and then the land bank, in partnership with the Rock Foundation in the city, kept doing that over and over and over again. And after a couple quarters, they started having the comps that were necessary to unglue mortgage lending in the city of Detroit. And it really kicked off that virtuous cycle of how does the private sector and the public sector come together to try to solve a structural issue, through good investment, good practices, and then good documentation and paper down the road, because you had to prove it out to the lenders, and you had to prove it out to investors and or insurers that properties were worth this much in order to unlock mortgage credit. And it was a huge success story. And what I'll do is I'll get you, Dale, the neat case study that the University of Michigan did on it, and to show really how much it helped unlock mortgage lending in the city of Detroit. So it's one of the highlights of my my career was actually working on that project.
I love that. And that speaks volumes of your character and Dan Gilbert. Dan Gilbert has just absolutely made such an impact in Detroit. I was just down there, I guess about a month ago, doing a keynote for a mortgage conference, and I could not believe how that even impacted down in the city, how nice the city has become. It's a thriving place again. And I remember years back, Detroit was tough. So thank you for being part of that.
No, it was, as I said, it was really special when we did our first home, and you get to see Dan and Mayor Duggan there at the announcement and the walkthrough, and I really, helped kick off the program. It's just been so useful and so helpful to the city of Detroit.
Well, thanks for being one of the good guys in the industry. We appreciate that so much. And I've really enjoyed this conversation and really appreciate your time. Let me close with this question. If you were to give just one bit of advice or one bit of knowledge or wisdom that you would share that lenders who watch this, originators who watch this, C-level executives who watch this in our industry, what would that be?
Be good listeners to the households that you serve.
Love that.
Everybody's a little bit different. Everybody's unique. Every family is unique. And the more you can listen and really understand kind of where that household's coming from, then you'll be able to deliver for that household as efficiently as possible, through either the right in-person engagement, the right telephonic engagement, or in tech speak, the right digital engagement to help that household through their housing finance journey over time. And if you do that right from the start and build that relationship, and then leverage good tools down the road, you really can keep that household to be a customer or client of yours for life. And that would be the number one piece of advice I'd give certainly anybody new and up and coming in this industry. Just like
awesome.
The power of listening is just so great.
I love that as a closing statement. I appreciate that so much. Tim, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the partnership with ICE for many years. It's always great to speak at the Experience Conference every year. I love doing that. Been an honor to be, promoted on your Encompass platform for years. Really appreciate the partnership. Really appreciate you taking time out of a very busy schedule to hang out with me for an hour and talk about the market and the industry. And thanks for what you guys are doing to help us just advance home ownership in the United States and help people create financial freedom. It's really been an honor.
Well, Dale, actually the thanks is all mine. The fact that you gave me so much time on your podcast is just greatly appreciated and too kind of you. So thank you so much.
It's our honor. Well, this has been another Batting 1,000 with a heavy hitter, and great to have Tim Bowler with us today. We look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Until then, go out and, to Tim's point, Be great listeners. Get to know your customers. Make the business great. God bless you guys, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks again, Tim.